Hello and welcome to our RayPack Studio live webinar. My name is Lara Sruka. I'm working in the area of product management, and today I represent you together with my colleague Marcin Otorowski, our lead program manager, the new features of the solution RayPack Studio. So one information, during the recorded webinar, we will mute all participants and send you the recording after this webinar. So first of all, I would like to give you an overview about RayPack Studio, and after this, Marcin will present you all the new features of RayPack Studio and switch directly to the live demo. After this, we will give you insight in our roadmap and future development. And at the end, we will start the Q&A session and answer all your questions. Okay, so RayPack Studio is an enterprise software packaging solution and includes different components. For example, for the software evaluation, RayEva is a simple and automated tool for generating professional documentation and descriptions of each installation step just with a simple mouse click. So RayPack is a component for software packaging and virtualization. Here you can create packages, for example, in the format MSI, MSIX, MST, MSP, and app layering with the new component pack layering. With the packager integration, you can use pre-configured software packages which are analyzed and quality assured. Also included is a solution for quality assurance. This is a rule-based tool for creating and executing package test criteria and simple checklists. And last, the collision and compatibility management for the readiness check of software applications in different environments. So RayPack Studio works in a perfect combination with workflow management solution, which provides real-time information and progress monitoring of all tasks in the software packaging cycle. So the new features and components.
Right. So I'm going to take over from that. We have like about 40-45 minutes of live webinar today, and I'm going to show RayPack a lot. I will start with a quick explanation of what was our motivation and which kind of high-level goals and which high-level key features we implemented in the product. And I think just two additional things. So at the end, we will show where and how to get the trial, how to test our product, and also I think in chat or somewhere around you should be able to see the release notes.
Yes.
So you can pretty much follow what I will be talking about. Since we have just only a limited time, I will try to limit myself on really the highlights. Although, if I recall correctly, there are like almost 200 points which really change in the product. So 200 new features, 200 resolved issues, 200 improvements, performance, and so on, meaning that we don't have time for all of them, but specifically for our existing user base, it would be really interesting to go and see all our release notes. Now, the three core technologies that we currently are showing in our PowerPoint, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what is it, why we decided to move in that direction, and later I'll try to do a live demo which will cover all these points, and I think it's going to be really interesting for the next few minutes. So the first one, Citrix app layering. It's actually an interesting approach from Citrix to provide a solution which works as a layering solution. So the purpose, the goal was that to split various bits of your operating system, software, possibly even drivers and some other stuff into layers. So particular implementation of Citrix app layering is to have a base OS layer, which has pretty much a bare OS image. Then the application layers, which are kind of dedicated for particular apps or group of apps. Then there is something like a platform layer, which kind of joins them, where you define your domain joins and a couple of other settings relevant for your environment. And finally, there is also the user layer, which means everything is fully separated. And the best of that is, since it works on a pretty low level, the layers are kind of joined, merged, and available kind of transparently to the operating system, which means that even like drivers can be deployed using Citrix app layering. They claim to like have almost 99 and 90, 80, I guess, % of compatibility. So that's something really interesting. And we are going to show you what RayPack Studio has on board and where we can help you with creation and editing of app layers. Another one, the MSIX, that's pretty much a already growing topic. More and more people, more and more companies are using that. Raynet has been pretty active on that. We've been like offering MSIX from the very beginning, like since 2 years almost right now. And in this release, we implemented a couple of new things that came over the last few months. Basically, all of this is like kind of Windows 10 release lifecycle and then MSIX lifecycle. So there is a pretty much open community. There are a lot of changes happening on GitHub from Microsoft, from contributors, and we try to kind of capture them and have them also available in our product to use. And finally, Windows 10 has been released recently. The new update, May 2020 update. And we also have something for you spanning across several products. I'm just going to show you a couple of highlights where the new features are and how this all works together. Like I said, it's not all, but this is going to be the main topic for today. And I'm just going to show a couple of smaller things, smaller features as we go. We'll try to highlight them. How we're going to proceed is just, again, a small introduction to what I'm just going to be showing live. With this release, we kind of close the gap that you can see right now on the right side. So our approach from the very beginning was to have kind of a single source of truth. That was the RayPack project in, if you know RayPack, RCP or RPP format. And then from that project, you could go to MSI world by conversion to MSI, MSP, patches, the transforms. You could also do that with the virtual formats, like converting to v4, 5, ThinApp, and semantic solution. With recent months and years, we added MSIX to that, and also PowerShell implement toolkit for apps which kind of cannot be converted or are coming from our package store. Now, the order is pretty random here, so different companies might have different priorities. Like they may prefer having like MSIX on the top, and if it doesn't work with MSIX, then maybe in a Windows installer. If it doesn't work with the installer, then maybe fall back to the legacy setup, just controlled over PowerShell. And we pretty much allow that. So once you do your repackaging or have your project which defines just a generic structure, which files, which registries are there, you can pretty much go to any format. Now, with this release, there are a couple of new things. We support the MSIX app attach. That's going to be certainly one of the focus for today. I will show you how to create a VHD disk that you can later use for the virtual desktop environment. We also added support for Citrix app layering, so that's display PKG format. Also available natively, you can convert your existing projects to Citrix app layering without any further tools required. And there's also something that you can't see right now, MSIX Core, which is also pretty new try from Microsoft to bring the new modern world of MSIX to older systems, which kind of not quite supported, like older version of Windows 10 or maybe even Windows 7. And that's also something which we added in this version. So this is pretty much how RayPack does on the Windows, packaging for Windows. And I will just take one part from that and try to cover as much as new things that as possible that we implemented in RayPack 6.3. So now let me go to my environment. There's RayPack. For this demo, I'm going to first just create a sample project, the RCP one. So again, just a generic definition of what my package contains. And I'm going to quite follow a few best practices. I'm going to do this on a virtual machine. So for that, there is a module packbot, which we also have been offering in RayPack since quite a time. And for the demo today, I'm going to take a small app key has, which is available as an executable format. I guess it's actually inner setup installer, so it has also a predefined set of switches you could use to install it silently. Fortunately, we don't have to find them out manually, because as soon as you select a setup, RayPack is pretty smart to actually find out how to install particular products silently. It may obviously vary for like NCs, for inner setup, for Windows installer, but basically you can still customize this and have initial silent experience out of the box without Googling, without going to Bing and stuff. Now, quick switch to formats. Like I said, we implemented several of them. You don't find all of them in that window. That's actually okay, because like I said, we'll first create this generic format, and once we are there, I will just try to show one by one. So things like MSIX core, the app attach, then the app layering, MSIX, and all these new features that we put in RayPack 6.3. So let's start with selecting RCP. That's going to make a capture. Just a quick review. So it's going to be named KeyPass. Let's use, okay, a virtual machine running in a background workstation. Could be also Hyper-V. And once ready, I'm just going to press next. And this is going to make a quick repackaging of my product. I'm not really interested in really big configuration of KeyPass, but obviously best practices say that it would be a perfect moment to like configure a few things, like disable updates, maybe can add some initial settings, or disable pop-ups. So depending on your app. There is one thing that is new here. So if you use the previous version of RayPack, you'll notice a new section here for empty folders. Just a minor addition that RayPack can also now capture empty folders, which usually are not relevant, but there may be some apps which really rely on presence of empty folders. So we added this based on feedback from our community. Now, again, without touching too many things here, just use it almost defaults. My point is not to really go through things that we've been offering since a few versions now, but more like to quickly get started and have a project that I can use to show the new things. So what you see right now in the background, I'm going to maybe bring the RayPack window in the foreground, is that a virtual machine is being started. It's a workstation hypervisor, so it runs completely on my local drive. And once ready, it's going to ask for the VM tools for their presence. It's going to sign me in. It's going to copy the setup on that machine, then finally execute it. And based on snapshot comparison, I'm going to get the results, which would be, like I said, a generic list of resources. So repackaging the result of what has been done between two snapshots. Just give it a moment. Going to take a few seconds. Now the files are copied. The first snapshot, then there's going to be completely silent installation. Again, I won't have really a chance to do anything. This could be really completely automated, in which there's no UI needed. And if you need that, you should probably go back and change a few options to be able to like stop at this point and give the user ability to like say, hey, do that and that, disable updates or the initial dialogues. But now the installation has been done. Second snapshot in progress, and once it's ready, it's going to be compared and sent back to my machine, after which the machine will return back to pool. So for the hypervisor from workstation, it's going to be simply powered off. So just a moment, and we are ready to go with our project. Yeah, so it's done. Again, quick confirmation. KeyPass installed with a silent command line. We can still have a look at the installation log. It's coming from the virtual machine from the actual installer. So it's not an MSI, it's not RayPack log, but just something which can be useful for troubleshooting, specifically if it was like fully unattended without user interaction. But the actual thing that I wanted is my project here. KeyPass password safe with all resources, logs, icons, and whatever is needed to convert to the actual format. So let's have a look. Let's try to open it. I'm going to go to the File menu, open the pack recorder project, and keep as password save. So like I said, there is really no connection with any technology like MSI or MSIX at that point. I can still configure a few options. So if you go to build options over there, you will see that, well, the MSIX is in any case there. So that's the place where you can, for example, select your kind of visual branding, the color of the tile, but also define whether MSIX core is going to be deployed. So we can make actually two builds, one without and one with, and I'm going to show what's the difference and what the MSIX core actually brings and how this has been implemented here. It's pretty much other than that zero touch, so it's normally enough to switch this option to include or not, and then you will be good to go to have your MSIX be deployable on another version of Windows. Another new tab is visible here, that's the app layering. So if you go for the Citrix app layering, there is few initial steps that you have to do. You would have to then log into your Citrix layering management console, and then you will have to export the package in LayPKG format. Plus, RayPack actually also needs to be able to read the original base layer for the operating system. That's because in Citrix app layering world, the packages are always created against a base image. So that's the place where you actually configure that. It's just a path to your definition of your operating system, and that would be the single option for Citrix. More on that soon. We're going back to Citrix in a moment. Now, we could also have a look on the files and folders, on the registries, just to verify that the package is pretty clean and contains really just what we wanted. RayPack does here a pretty good job. So as you can see, a lot of entries are already excluded, and we don't have to actually make, well, many more manual operation. What is green here has been just marked as new resources. The same for the registries, for shortcuts and merge modules. So in most cases, you just simply have this project and maybe just review it once. But other than that, our exclusions really do a good job. So now let's try to build it. We go to File and Build. That list is pretty much longer now in RayPack 6.3. So like I said, we added a few new formats. There is the MSIX app attach. There is the Citrix app layering. We're going to start with the just usual MSIX to discuss a few things which we changed according to changelog of the MSIX and Windows 10 to 2004. So let's take a look. How do we convert to the MSIX? Right, it could be in that folder, so just save it. There was one thing I actually did in the background. As you know, all MSIX packages must be digitally signed, and that certificate that you use to sign must be also trusted on the machine where you try to install. I have actually done this already. So in RayPack, my certificate is already configured, and also if I now double click on the MSIX, which is now coming from our conversion. Okay, it seems that my Windows is German, so it's partially localized, but that icon actually here tells us that the certificate is trusted. And this is actually everything we need to install that package now on any machine, which obviously trusts this publisher. So later I'm going to show the MSIX app attach on a different machine, on which also the certificate must be imported to get it up and running. Now, if we go back, that's the MSIX created. Like I said, this was a generic format. We can now make some tests, see if the MSIX works properly on the target environment. But the actually interesting part would be to now open it and see what has been created. So we have a native editor for MSIX packages. You can create from scratch, just drag and drop a few resources. You can convert them from RCP, what I just did. So it's essentially snapshot, installation, maybe reboot, another snapshot, and then the difference is kind of converted to the MSIX with all high-level entities. So like I said, one of the key features of 6.3 is the support of services in MSIX. So if your package happens to have services at that place, they are going to be converted into that format. So let's have a look. File open. This time I'm going to select the MSIX. Maybe I can actually save this one. And where did I put it? In MSIX, keypass, password, save. All right, that brings us to a slightly different view, more like now MSIX specific, but it still follows our base principles. So you'll be pretty much feeling comfortable with that. It's not that much different from working with the MSI format or the repackaging format. As always, there are a couple of meta properties, so we can still review them, have a look which version was that, whether the icon is correct, because all of this are then part of your visual identity. When you install the app, you will actually still see them in this dialog that I was just showing to you. So it seems to be that it's pretty much okay. You can have a look at the capabilities which are required. It's a desktop app, not UWP, which means a run full trust is required, and RayPack is already setting this up for us. There's also some automation here, like if your app requires like admin privileges and asks for UAC, RayPack will also try to detect that and set the elevation to true. So just to allow this app to actually elevate. If we go to files and folders, that's going to be just an overview of what has been taken from our repackaged setup to the MSIX. That view looks pretty much clear, and there are not that many resources because whatever has been excluded in the step before is simply not present in the MSIX. So it might not be that big importance like in the previous MSIA packaging for Fed clients, so that you really have to be careful about all the resources, because after all, that package is going to be virtualized. But still, good practice would be to spend maybe a minute or two to find out if all the resources are really there, belong to the package, remove the leftovers. That, on the other hand, will just make sure that the installation time is reduced, your transfer bandwidth reduced, and also all the updates and comparison operations will be faster. So the same is about the registry, supported by the MSIX. There are a few peculiarities here about some apps, but I'm going to discuss them soon as we go to the PSF. And finally, the applications, there should be just one, the keypass. It's pretty much something like a shortcut. So you can define that it's going to be shown the start menu, what is the input executable, and a few other kind of visual definitions like the color, icon, and some of them. Now, there is here something new. Previously, the PSF, so Package Support Framework, was part of that dialog, and you were able to define a few basic fixups, like to set up file redirections to kind of like shims for compatibility. Now we decided to move it to a separate screen, so we will find all of them under Fixups. Right now there is nothing because that was just a simple installation. If you want to add a fixup, and you know that the app is known to cause troubles, like it writes or tries to write logs into kind of its install there. This would work in the MSI world as long as you are permitted as your administrator to write in program files, but it will certainly fail in the MSIX world. So our new dialogues and new screen make it pretty easy to manage. I could just simply click it through and show how to make it visually. In the backend, I can also open that file later on. In the backend, it's going to be a JSON definition, which is a bit verbose, and as such, much easier to work with RayPack than to really set it up manually. So for me, to work with a fixup, I would just say which app would be kind of fixed by me. That's keypass. And then I would define what is to be actually covered by this. So let's have a look. There is a library, and also this has been expanded in 6.3. There are just a few more fixups. The most used one probably is file redirection, but that list is pretty much not complete. It may change. There are some new also coming from community fixups, especially for registry fixups, and you can later also add them if something new comes to GitHub. It's pretty easy to add them here and to be using them. They are kind of standards. So this is not really RayNet specific, but more like taking over what the community does, what Microsoft is doing. So you would just then select a fixup and say that there are a couple of rules. We don't have to actually go through them, but for example, for the file redirection, you would just say, hey, if the app tries to write anything to program files / say key pass with extension log, then try to redirect this to another folder where you can write, and then it's going to be then fully transparent using using detours from Microsoft, and just ensuring that the app at least doesn't crash. And hopefully it's going to be working. The rule is pretty much the same for all other fixups. So later, if you like, configure something for registry, for example, to be able to write to current user node, that's also possible and follows pretty much the same logic. So yeah, that's how you define the fixups over there. Let's just define something, so it doesn't matter really what, but I wanted to show later how this is converted and where to look it for in the actual MSI project. So just taking something like that. Yeah, so that's how we manage fixups, and in 6.3 it's just much easier because we took this from the applications, and instead of thinking about where to put the fixup, you just select which app to fix, and you see this all in all places. So you have a complete overview of what your package is doing, what is really required, and so on. The fixups, like I said, the library is extendable. Right now we offer the file redirection, support for attaching debugger. There's also the Electron one, the DLL fixup, and like I said, some more can be added easily. Now, another new thing in our MSIX functionality are scripts. The user complained a lot about MSIX being not quite flexible when it goes to the deployment. So all the resources, specifically what goes to the user profile, they had to be kind of either static in your package or maybe created by the app itself, but it caused another issue. Like sometimes the presence of the folder at the time of the installation could actually determine the kind of merging logic, and it really was problematic. What was even more important was that if the app was not able to like set up a profile upon launching and required some dynamic values, it was not possible to do it because the files that you deploy with your package or registry keys are static. You cannot like use variables like in MSI or so. So what has been done by Microsoft is support for scripts, which can be used to do something in the beginning and upon closing the application. And this is actually realized through, again, PSF. So you will find this logically under the PSF group. And a sample would be, okay, I'll just add a new test script to maybe output a hello world into program files. Keypass .txt. So in PowerShell world, this would just write a string into a file. And then the target path where to save the script, let me just select. It's going to be part of my package, so I can put this, for example, in my install dir in program files under VFS. And that script is going to be called, and the content you can just see on my screen. So it's pretty easy to set up, and let's say we are going to run this for, again, the keypass. One important thing is that RayPack also in the background did a bit of magic, so it also redirected our keypass to a launcher of PSF. Again, this just makes it much easier to work with that. And here are the options to configure for your script. Some of them are pretty reasonable default, like maybe setting this once per user. So you kind of adjust your profile, you set up your things, write to registry or to user app data only once, and subsequent calls to your app will not do anything more. You can decide whether to run the script before or maybe after the app closes, so a kind of cleanup. And then there's some handling of error codes, what happens if the script fails, and whether the app must wait for that script to finish. So it's also something where I would say would be, in most cases, required. So once you set it up, you will get a view with a script. And again, you can always go back to that and change the arguments, change the parameters, or even change the content of the file if you then go to the sources. So setting up a script is pretty much, well, simple with help of RayPack. and all this complexity of PSF, configuring JSON files, and so on is really hidden from the user. All other stuff, okay, here services might be also important. That's also completely new. Although you must be careful. Services in MSIX are not truly virtualized like it used to be for AppV. Instead, they are really installed physically, which means the first user to install the product will have to elevate the installation. It actually is normally not a big deal if you deploy through like a deployment system and so, but might cause troubles like if you do, for example, app attach later on, or for consumer apps, because then that UAC is unavailable to install the service. Still, since MSIX from 2004 Windows supports it, we also added it in our product, and again, it's pretty similar to all other places in RayPack where you configure the services. So it's just about to give a name, select which application is actually housed for that service, option the arguments, the account, and startup type, and it's going to be then created. So let's just put some dummy values so we can then later on have a look how this looks. Right. So once we are ready with the MSIX, let's have a build. I'll just write with extra name, maybe with PSF. So again, the certificate is configured. The package will be automatically signed by RayPack. And now we can go back and see how this looks like. So it has been saved. We could extract it, but I wanted to just focus your attention on that one little file, config.json, which belongs to PSF, and it contains the PSF definition, including the scripts which are started and the redirection fixups that we defined. So if you are pretty much following what is announced on GitHub and on Microsoft, you certainly recognize that pattern, and right now we can also use that from RayPack. Yeah, so that's the adjusted package after injecting PSF, after showing how to add services, how to add scripts, how to add the new Fixups, and all these three are core improvements that we did in our MSIX support. Plus, again, I highly recommend to go to the release notes to find out more improvements, which are really helpful in daily working, conversion to MSIX, and also editing the packages. Now I promised to show how MSIX core is working, so we can actually repeat the build. But this time, let's go again to my project, which I had somewhere here. That was our key pass. Okay, no. And like already announced, there is now a way in build options to specify that the MSIX core is to be activated. It's again pretty much self-explaining and requires no further attention other than saying, yeah, include the runtime executable, or you can also select to include the setup, so the MSI that you can use to deploy that product. Well, I would say the setup may make some sense to like easily deploy and use the standard MSI command line, but for testing, just only the executable would be also fine. So just an exe which knows how to interpret the MSIX. Obviously, we're talking about kind of bridge. It's not going to be fully supported on your target device. There's just going to be some functionality lost, like the byte level updates, like some other enhancements and new stuff in MSIX. It's just really for bringing the product there without really the all cool highlights of the MSIX. So if we build this one again to MSIX, and this time maybe in a subfolder, or if we go to core, as you can see, that's just the MSIX with a bit of tweaks to ensure that the MSIX core is supported and defined, plus the runtime MSIX mgr exe is your entry point, and the RayPack also created a command line to actually start it. So now you could actually take these files to Windows 7 or to Windows 10, some older edition, run it, and the MSIX would be deployed on machine basis, but the most important stuff is that the MSIX will be there, its content available, and the app will be startable. And that's everything that matters here. Right. So the last part of the MSIX that we did here would be to demonstrate how the app attach is working. App attach is also a really interesting concept, pretty similar in the idea of what Citrix is doing, except the implementation is slightly different. So MSIX as a basis virtualizes. So the package cannot see like other packages which are outside the container. And there is also a strict level of isolation and also permissions, everything imposed by the MSIX. But with help of app attach, it's really easy to set up really thin clients, which then based on the number of required apps or assignments coming from GPO, can then be used to attach additional apps upon login. So you start your machine and then the additional apps are just being brought to you, which just takes a fraction of seconds, and the environment is there, completely separated from the actual operating system and better serviceable and so on. Now, there is a big documentation about that and a lot of materials on YouTube and also on the internet. So if you want to know more about this, also highly recommended lecture. And I'm going to show how to do this with RayPack, and then maybe we still have plenty of time. I'll show you how this then works and what to do with the output of RayPack. So to make it working, let's first go back to not include the MSIX core. And the main prerequisite for MSIX app attach is, just like the name suggests, to have a package in MSIX format. So any other setups or Windows installers must be first converted to MSIX. If for some reason it doesn't quite work, well, then probably Fixups must be used, or the app like that would be a no-go for MSIX app attach. But fortunately, my keypass, which I just created, is already in MSIX format, and I'm just going to quickly convert it to the app attach. So let's have a look. Build MSIX app attach, and again in another folder. So this is going to create a VHD containing my expanded app and a bunch of scripts which can be used to actually set it up, make it up and running. They can be like now used using the like GPO login and shutdown and so on events. You should normally first stage, then register, and when the user disconnects, then deregister, and when the machine shuts down, then destage. But you can also start them manually just to get started, just to test whether this works at all. And for that, you need Windows 10, 20, or 4, or insider builds pre-release, but also not quite old. So let's just have a quick look. This is going to be super fast. I'm just going to bring this whole app attach into my environment. And like I said, oops, I just double-clicked something. So no keypass is installed here. Now I'm going to start PowerShell. Unfortunately, I don't have Windows Terminal, which is super cool, but I could use Winget to get it. Let's first make sure that the execution policy is correct. And then what about starting the script just to quickly get our keypass in MSIX format up and running? So first, like I said, we are going to stage. And then register. So after these two steps, if you go to Start menu, you will see that my keypass is there. So that's exactly the keypass that we just created using RayPack. We can start it. That app certainly works in MSIX. Okay, I didn't configure anything, so there are just nasty updates checks, which you should normally disable. And then there is my app running in MSIX format. So that easy was that, and normally the scripts run at logon or upon starting the machine. And then they can be also used to clean up. So now the other around, the register and this stage would make sure that the app is not there on my system and not available to the user. So now if we go to the start menu, the KeyPass is gone. So pretty easy to set up. Instead of like, again, following a few steps as outlined by Microsoft, we have an out-of-the-box support for this. And it's actually super cool to work with. So now with the scripts, you can already play around as all the APIs are available in 2004. Now, the last build that we do from RCP would be the Citrix one. So let's go again to our menu where I already built the MSIX, the app attach, and now let's create the app layering. So this is go to RayPack, just right over there. And again, from the same format, depending on what's my requirements, I can build several other packages. This is going to use my options that I defined before, like the base operating system, and the package will be pretty small. So just maybe around the size of the KeyPass. There's actually a good reason why I mentioned that. The tooling from Citrix is pretty, I would say, not quite sophisticated. So the layers that you create using their snapshotting tool are really big. There's a lot of resources which are getting captured, obviously for the virtual packages, and so it doesn't make that big hit, but still, in terms of performance, if you think about like a 7-zip package taking a few hundred megabytes, that's a lot. And most of this is completely not required, like hidden somewhere in System32, a lot of registry keys. So our approach was to make sure that the packages are so small as possible by converting them from a project which is already available. Or so this runs in the background. Let's start the pack layering tool, or use our new component, which can be used for kind of cleanup and editing of existing layers. So let's have a look. The pack layering one. And I'm going to open maybe first the project that I just configured. So what was it? I think projects, yeah. KeyPass, yeah. So let's open the RayPack. And this is just going to show me the UI, which is, again, similar to all our other parts. And that's the place where you can see the files, the registries, and some meta objects that were converted during the conversion. Now, interesting part would be to actually show you how the actual package from Citrix may look like. And that's actually the big feature that is really beloved by our user base. So if I go back to sources, layers, and then there is a package which has how much? Well, that's just 1.5 gigabyte for Inkscape. And my estimation would be that the Inkscape is actually like maybe 10% of that size. Still, well, like I said, the repackager didn't do quite a good job on the Citrix part, and you can use RayPack to fix it. By opening this, you could then go to files and folders, and let's make a quick cleanup, see how much can we save. So in the Windows folder, there's a lot of resources which have completely nothing to do with Inkscape. So just let's remove them. The same for the user part, also a lot, everything not related. So again, just remove them. This leaves us with the Inkscape in program files, and we could also do something similar for the registry. I'm just going to skip that part and to try to save this and see how much did we save. So if we now save as, let's make another folder, clean up, and where did I save it? It was in sources, layers, cleanup. So that's 130 megs. Well, we just kind of get rid of 90% of that package, and that's the saving you can get when using pack layering module. Right. So now for the last part, that's the Citrix part, both conversion from MSI, from executable, from other formats into RayPack. which you can then later export to Citrix. I have here a small screenshot showing how this looks like later in the console. So, it's an example of 7-zip, but basically it follows the same principle. So export, edit with RayPack, import back to the system. And the other module was pack layering, which is to open, clean up whatever you may already have in Citrix. And for the last part, I'm going to go to RayQC Advanced and to the rules part, because there's also some place where we did a lot of work. And specifically to the system readiness, that list is now a bit bigger with support for Windows 10 2004. We added some new rules. They follow the same grouping names, so you can still compare like different results between systems. And there are some smaller differences, smaller checks added, which will be then reported in particular groups. So you can use your quick tests or tests from library for compatibility against Windows 10, but also for MSIX if you want to know if your package is going to be runnable in MSIX or MSIX app-attach format. And finally, you can also automate this. Automation is apropos a big point and also one of the key highlights of that release. It lets you actually do all of this, like automated testing, completely silently automated in your CI pipeline, so without even touching the UI. We had already support for command line execution in RayQC Advanced, but now with this build, there is also a PowerShell module. Well, this might be a bit more technical to non-PowerShell users, but as simple as that would be, I'm just going to start a console and let me find out how this is called in RayQC. So the module is called automation. I'm just going to grab this one and import. Normally a task that you would do just once. Oops, I forgot. Raynet, RayQC at. Yeah. So now you could, for example, say, show me the rules which RayQC Advanced can do. And it's going to print out all these new rules, including Windows 10 2004, obviously. And then you could like say, get me my package, which would be, so what did you have? Public, I guess sources. Okay, we have some CD burner, so we can save this one as a package. We can save the rule, like let's take, okay, something from maybe Windows Word. Just looking for a good candidate. Yeah, okay, let's maybe take Windows 7 64-bit. So the rule, and then we can finally start a test completely silently. Again, I'm just writing this all, but normally it's just 3 lines. So let's make a test on rule with pkg and just do not add the database to test. So this is going to, again, be executed completely from PowerShell, and later it's going to give me the results, which I can, again, parse and see all the issues. Okay, they are localized because my system is German, but this is the full information showing what has been found in the package. Is it critical or not? And you can then use this information further to automate or even create a PDF report from that. So that automation is pretty cool. And if you combine this with other modules which we offer for RayPack and RayFlow, you can achieve pretty a lot and have like completely automated tests and also completely automated packaging, or make the smaller adjustments automated in RayFlow or just simply in your tooling. So that will be all for the high-level part. So automation, Windows 10 2004, the MSIX, app-attach, MSIX core, and also Citrix. I still highly recommend to go to release notes, which even more explore these topics, show some more bits that I just skipped for that short demo. And well, I hope that at least you like the live part, and that's going to be an inspiration for discovering what Raynet has done with RayPack 6.3. So now, before we go to the Q&A, let me go back to the roadmap. We still have plenty of ideas. Some of them are still resolved around MSIX, so more new fixups are going to be added, more even features for the MSIX support, making sure that as much as possible packages can be converted to that new format. In QC Advanced, where we did the Windows 2004 rules, there's going to be also the deconflicting of the layers, which is also a feature asked by many users, how to make sure that two layers do not conflict with each other, and we are going to certainly help in that. There's going to be a lot happening in Intune, like publishing and building Intune packages directly from RayPack, but also as a part of tooling, so you could use parts and bits of our product and put into your automation to actually have these all big pipelines running with help of RayPack and possibly even Rayflow. And finally, we're also working on the package store part integration, which is already in the product, but where we put more attention would be, again, the Intune, but also support for third-party patching with help of WSUS. So pretty interesting topic, and stay tuned for updates from Raynet to hear when we are ready with that. Yeah, so that will be more or less the roadmap, what we plan with RayPack, and now we have a few minutes for Q&A.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Martin, for the demonstration. And now, if you have questions, please let us know. Write it down in the chat function, and we will answer this. Okay, one question is Windows Sandbox supported?
Windows Sandbox. You can run RayPack in Windows Sandbox. So there are some few tweaks to make it work with some issues we've not resolved. It's compatible with Sandbox, and you can use it to use RayPack even without license, our licenseless module of repackaging, to make sure that even without workstation or Hyper-V, you have at least some local way of making quick repackaging and getting the results back.
Okay, the next question is, can you create app installer files?
I guess app installer, it's written with space between app and installer, but I guess it's app installer as an extension. I mean, the one from MSIX world. Yeah, you can do that. When building a project, I think I was already in that place. There's just simply a checkbox which you can mark, enter the URL where you host your packages, and then it's going to create an app installer file, which you can then later use to install your updates automatically, which, by the way, is also pretty cool in MSIX.
Okay, the next question is, what type of certificate used to sign MSIX package? How to manage expire date? Yeah, so this is something I didn't actually do during the webinar. I just created a certificate for code signing. So you just make sure that that it supports that particular capability. And there are just PowerShell scripts which can be used for that. And also, if you build something from RayPack, especially MSIX part, there is an option to create a new certificate for you, which I guess is going to create something for 1 year and use that for signing. In production, you probably would have either a certificate which is like signed by a chain, eventually by some trusted root. That certificate may be a PFX file with password, may also be imported into your store, so you don't have to have a password, and we support both of them. Okay, one more. Can I edit layers directly from the console?
Edit layers directly from the console. If I understand correctly, please correct me. If not, it's about kind of opening RayPack and editing something which is present in the layering management console. We currently support a different scenario. You have to go first to your console and export the package. That's just how Citrix currently is working. We're still looking for some good solution to that. Right now, that extra step is required. So you have to get this LayPKG file from your Citrix environment, and then you can edit.
So one more question is, can RayPack repackage drivers?
Can RayPack repackage drivers?
Yeah.
Basically, yes. So you can capture all the changes that are going to be eventually shown in the pack recorder project. I think the most important that question was more like what kind of target formats actually can support drivers. If you like export to Citrix, like I said, the Citrix layers, they pretty much support a lot because they work on the low level. You won't be able to do that with MSIX, definitely. So in that case, the drivers must be just completely separated out of the package, deployed maybe via Windows Update or some other classic techniques. Could be MSI, could be just executable. And for the Windows installer, we have also actions which are able to install drivers. So in that area, it would also be, yeah. So again, depends on what the technology actually impose, which limits.
Okay. Does the RayFlow support non-persistent environment deployment? What is the process for MSIX?
RayFlow. I'm not quite sure if was it really RayFlow meant. If the non-persistent environment deployment is the process for MSIX. So RayFlow is pretty flexible. So how you define your workflows, there are just some tools you can plug in, scripts and so on and so on, and we provide the right tools. Now, for the MSIX deployment, you can use our APIs to actually create the MSIX packages. I cannot give one ultimate answer to how do you manage the non-persistent sessions with RayFlow, because a lot depends on how do you host it, permissions, and so on and so on. The rules, users, who is the target for the assignment. So pretty a lot of questions here. I would say, generally speaking, RayFlow is so flexible that you can build a lot of that with help of our tooling or third-party tooling or some custom scripts. For the details part, I think we would have to maybe spend some more time on this to fully analyze all the requirements.
Okay, so in which edition is Citrix app layering?
Citrix app layering part, the conversion to that format and also editing and cleaning up is available in the Enterprise edition. So we're talking about Enterprise feature, which also matches our edition matrix. And you can find the checkbox in the Enterprise column.
Okay, one more. When you have an application with a driver and you want to create an MSI, does RayFlow create the MSIX and automatically the MSI for the drivers?
We have this in our backlog, and you can actually use the RayQC Advanced to find out if that's going to be required. And that's something which we in our development team is working on.
Okay, so when you have some questions, please let us know. I think there are no more questions yet. But when you have someone, you can contact us after this webinar at every time. And yeah, here are our contacts and mail address. And yeah, thank you very much for joining this webinar and have a nice day. Bye bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye bye.